Hello, friends. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 2 of the Lovely and Beloved podcast. And today, beloved, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about defining modesty within today's culture and the concept of the traditional woman. Yes. And do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So as a woman that has grown up in a more conservative household, I have definitely been able to see more of the traditional woman in my lifestyle while going into the evolution of, today's society, Western culture. So it's interesting to see how the traditional woman and the modern woman are coming together and how they merge and what that looks like. Because I do hear a lot of young people, they say, hey, when I'm dating a guy, I want a traditional relationship or traditional marriage. But it's like, what does that look like? Because obviously there's aspects of our lives that are completely different than what it was in the past. So is it possible to still hold on to those things? And if so, what does that look like?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good topic to kind of dig into because I think it'll also give us the parameters to understand what what our left and right limits are whenever we are requesting that from our spouse or requesting that from our partner, requesting a traditional woman or requesting a traditional male, because traditional women in the 1920s who didn't have as much rights as we do now wouldn't do we really want to be confined to those parameters? So having those conversations and also looking at the male's role has changed from what it was decades ago to what it is even today. And so it I think it's a really important topic to kind of dig into and unpack so that we understand what we are requesting from each other, and we understand the terms that we are essentially using. So do you have all the questions, or you want me to kick off?
Yeah, if you can go back and forth.
Absolutely. So digging into this topic today, really defining the the roles of a traditional woman. What does that mean? Looking at it through a modern lens or a modern scope. The first question here is, do we believe, or what evidence show that traditional women are outdated in today's circular climate?
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic question. So I took a sociology class last year, and they were just saying there's a concept called armchair talk. So it's basically you using the things that you see in your own personal life to be the evidence of what everything is, or how women are, how men are, how relationships are. But I would say if we go back to the actual evidence of a traditional woman, we have to look back when it actually started, the concept started, like basically before World War One, right? You have men who are going out to war. You have these women who are now putting positions where they have to take that leadership position in their own home. Now they're taking on what I would say is the future of even women today, in the sense that, hey, we have to do it all, because not every household is now a family unit. There are single mother homes, and it is being popularized. If we just look at society, it's like, okay, as women can do it all. The income, right now, I think for women, they make, in general, more money than men on a yearly salary, based off, of course, not the same. How do I say this? The same industries, of course, but let's just say we're on that hustle. So um, traditionally, women were being taken care of in the home, and their job was to be the caretaker. But now women are outside the home, and not only they're caretakers, but they're doing the thing in the business field, in media and entertainment. So is that okay? Is that shaking up what some people would say traditionality is needed for.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like looking at this question specifically, what evidence show that traditional women are outdated in today's society? I wouldn't say that they're outdated, but I would definitely say um we we are more involved. And like you said, like with the example of the women's impact during World War I. Like, you know, we were out there working the factories, we were the nurses, taking care of the wounded soldiers. We had a really hands-on impact on the success of and support of World War I. And then so we kind of look at it prior to World War I, women weren't working. They were known to stay at home. The economy was good, so a one income family structure, it just worked. In today's economy, I don't think if we have the same ideals as the traditional woman from 40 years ago, 60 years ago, 80 plus years ago, I don't think that would be conducive to what we're trying to do now. So, in that sense, I would say that the whole prism of traditional womanhood, which was staying at home, taking care of the kids, not working, not going to school, not getting the education, not CEOs, not leading the workforce. In that aspect, like yes, traditional women are outdated in today's society because the women we see now, they're extremely driven. Even though we don't lead in CEOs, I now can say like, oh, I know at least two women CEOs. Prior to the 19 like late 1900s, that wasn't a I that wasn't a reality, if you will. So I think definitely because of how forward we've come as women to just kind of seclude ourselves into that box of traditionalism, traditional womanhood. I think we're overqualified at this point um, for that um, for that boxing, essentially.
That's so good. And even if I were to add, I think just the way as a society, how we define women is totally different. I know within the past couple of years, within the past decade, a lot of words have been or have become fluid, right? So back in, like you said, the 1920s, the way people looked at women was very specific. Childbearer, taking care of the home. Now, the way we define women is limitless. It's like, okay, women are capable of doing so many things. So with that, women no longer being in this, like you mentioned, a small box, it really changes the whole dynamic on how we look at women today and traditionalism. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and then so one person is saying just because it's popularized doesn't mean it's right. And so I'm not completely sure what that's supposed to mean, but I guess like a personal anecdote, me, I would say I am a modern day traditional woman, because like I'm traditional in the realm of when it comes to my relationship, my partnership, um, we have we play the traditional roles. Like I'm the wife, my husband is the male, he's the head. But if we go outside of that scope, I'm a modern day woman. You know, I have various degrees. I'm in a rigorous workforce environment. I'm leading the charge. I'm an executive officer in the army. I'm I'm taking on a lot of roles that traditional women didn't even stand a chance in being centuries ago. So in that realm, even though I am traditional in the biblical sense, in society, like in the world, I play more roles than just a traditional role.
Yeah. And that's That's a great point, and that's a great way to. It's a great point that you can define yourself as that, because I feel like women fall in different aspects of the spectrum when it comes of how they would define themselves. For me personally, ideally, I would definitely say I'm more of a traditional woman, but of course, my lifestyle is something different. I am a flight attendant. I'm outside of the home. Just my lifestyle is very more on the independent side of things, and of course, taking care of my own, which is absolutely okay. But I think that's just, of course, it depends on what position you are. Because eventually, if I am a woman, I'm a person that would prefer to be at home. Not saying that I won't have my hustle going, but I want to be a person who's definitely very active. Like if there's children, I may have a side business. But like I said, every woman gets to define that, and I feel like traditional needs to be redefined in our society at this point, because it doesn't mean the same thing. And when people do use that word, it is going back to what it looked like 100 years ago. And it's like, no, traditional could possibly just mean, hey, maybe the woman who just wants to stay in the home when she's married and take care of the kids, and her husband's the breadwinner. That's fine. But of course, there's still going to be parts of our lives that aren't going to be traditional at the end of the day. So it's definitely an interesting conversation in that sense.
Agreed. And the next question.
So we did have a question that's aligned with womanhood and the definition of woman, and one of those things being modesty. And the question states, is modesty being seen as outdated in today's society when, in fact, things being particularly possibly sexualized, especially for women, it's a norm. It's not something that is seen cliched back in the day. It's like, okay, if you've seen a woman's shoulder, it's like, today it's like, hey, you could put it out there, all out there, and it's womanhood. It's empowerment. It's a tool that's being used to tell women, hey, you can be a strong woman and confident in who you are, and it doesn't have to be limited to just you. It could be your body as well. So what does that look for the woman who may not agree with that, or may look differently and say, hey, that woman, she has her clothes off, she shouldn't do that, she needs to be covered up, because that's do, okay, in a society where it's like there really isn't any kind of rules set for that as far as the moral stigma that goes behind that.
Yeah, and for this question, how is immodesty being popularized? This one kind of rings real personal to me because I've always been more on the modest side. I'm gonna be completely honest. I did have a moment of like really like this. I went through this really insecure phase in my life where I really started seeing that the less modest I was, that was kind of like when I was showing or really craving attention, and that attention was definitely coming from the wrong place. But it was like to fill a void, and it was so easy to kind of go down the path of immodesty. Like, luckily for me, because of how strict I grew up, I didn't like stray too far to the edge. But for me, I was like, this is I was wearing more makeup. I was always like the type of person where I'm like, well, if I'm gonna show my belly button, I'm gonna make sure I'm wearing a long pants. Like, I can't show everything all at once. I gotta show it in segments. But I went through a phase where it was all like going out more, wearing less type of thing. So it was like the world made it so easy to kind of fall into that. But I also like kind of like when reflecting back, that was probably one of my lowest insecurest points in my life. A point where I was like really transitioning and understanding who I was, and the easiest thing that I could do in that moment was like really um become empowered through immodesty, like by showing more and being a little bit more aloof. Because me, I'm like that person where people are like, do you ever have fun? And I'm like, I have a lot of fun all the time. And I'm like in the house all weekend scrapbooking. But I'm like, I'm having the time of my life. So that's how I was always kind of that's kind of how I grew up, really constrained, and I loved it though, because I'm like I didn't see much of anything else, and I had a little smidge of the world, and I really realized that I wasn't missing much. I don't find it comforting to be completely naked all the time. I don't feel empowered by everyone just seeing everything, and then so I tried to understand it by walking in that shoe. Um, and it didn't make any sense to me. But I understand that there are some women who are extremely empowered by being naked and really marketing it as or rebranding it as reclaiming their bodies. And I'm like, how is this a reclaim of your body? I always really thought that, you know, your body is more so simple. um you are a diamond, like you are something treasured, type of thing. And I felt more comfortable not revealing myself to the world. Like I felt as though that that was more treasured in that way. So it's really interesting how society has been able to warp our young minds into thinking that this is what we need to do to be seen. But to be honest, like I felt the most unseen in that season, and the reason why it ended so abruptly was because I fell in love with myself like internally, and I wasn't looking to fill a void. I did the work on myself, and I repaired myself, and through that work, I realized that this wasn't really fulfilling any void, but kind of feeling, not really feeling anything, but deepening it even more because I felt even more loss in the sauce, if you will. So that's kind of like my take on how it has become so well marketed to be popularized.
Mm. Wow, that's so powerful. That is super powerful what you shared. And it's funny because I have a similar background. You know, I grew up with parents that are pastors. So I remember going school shopping with my mom. And I mean, anything that fit me, anything that showed a little curve, a little box, I mean, she said, go 2 sizes up. I said, this woman, you know? And I was just, I didn't realize what she was doing, but in the back of the scene, she was just making me comfortable with the idea of being covered and having that modesty to the point when I did become an adult. Like you said, I went to college. I didn't feel comfortable putting myself out there. Like literally, my pants were too tight, or I have shown too much skin. I'm just over here. Like literally, it was one time I think I wore my first tight dress, and I was just, you don't stand up, and I'm like, I can't. I just feel like I'm just a naked woman. So um, I think just growing into that and realizing, hey, this isn't just something I was taught. This is something that I internally agree with in the sense of modesty and the way I care for my body. It became more of a mission for me. So me personally, I do think the things that I wear not only affect women, but the young women. There are little girls that are looking up to the way that we dress. So if we are going to say, hey, it's okay for us to be naked, how are we going to tell someone who's 14 that it's inappropriate? That's a double standard. So I feel like definitely setting the tone when it comes to modesty in this modern day era is important because a lot of women are not thinking about the younger generation and the women that we're raising. It's about me, it's my self empowerment, which is great. But you have to look at the bigger picture, which is not everyone's job. But I think it's so essential, really. And it's funny, I know a few artists like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj when they were first coming up in their career. There was a lot of moms like hitting up on them, like, "Hey, you're an example. Like my daughter looks up to you, and you over there shaking your butt on stage." And it's like she's like, "It's not my job to take care of your daughter." But you see, like people still hold this sense of like, "Hey, like our children, our children. Why is it important for them and then not important for adults?" So it is a do think it is important to maintain that modesty, and not that you have to, but that it's an option for this generation. Because now it's saying, "Hey, just take your clothes off." It's not even, "Hey, maybe you can do this, but you can also walk in a way where you're covered up and you're living a life that is more pure in the sense of your body and owning your body as your own and not for the world."
And I think how it's really crazy now in today's society. Just saying that I prefer to be covered up is extremely controversial. That is something that is gonna get the people going. You know, it's gonna flip some tables, and and I think, like you said, at the end of the day, it's up to the individual. Like if you prefer to be all out in the open, and that is what makes your heart full, then at the end of the day, I'm not gonna stand in the way and be like and cast any stones. But at the same time, I think it would be so amazing if we could have a space where we're like, I like to have my clothes on. I'm a person who loves turtlenecks. I have them in all types of I have it in all different types of materials. I have long sleeves, I have short sleeves. I love me a good turtleneck. And I was commonly bullied really for dressing so modestly. They're like, they would literally be like, "You're dressing like a grandma. You know, you're young. Show some skin." And I'd be like, "Why? I don't even know you like that." You know, so it's like if only it would be as popular to be modest as it would be to be sexualized. Because it's just so much easier to be like, I like to be butt naked. But let me say, you know what? I seen this real nice two-piece suit at Macy's the other day. I might do it. Don't tempt me. And then that's gonna start a whole big old fiasco. Like, so you didn't see that spaghetti strap right next to it? So it's that's kind of like my personal take on it. I just really wish that in today's society, young women like ourselves, to embrace the idea of it's okay to be Christian, dress nicely, and not show skin. Like, that's all right. It's okay. You don't got to be Virgin Mary, but I'm just saying that it's okay to look good fully dressed. I can show y'all some pictures. I'm usually fully dressed and I'll be looking good. But I'm gonna let y'all tell me. I'm gonna let you tell me. Okay, so that's kind of really my biggest take on that. Just uh, vocalizing that it's okay to be both, and and not okay to be both, but it's okay to have a preference to be one over the other.
Mm.
Yeah.
That, oof, that's so good. I actually have a impromptu question that just went into my head. It combines the traditionalism with this sense of I don't want to say, for lack of better words, immodesty, and how that correlates within relationships, right? So of course, men have different dynamics, and men are very protective. I've heard this from a lot of men. They do prefer a woman that is covered up. I remember my grandma, she told me, my grandma is 85, absolutely beautiful. And she just sat me down in the car one day and she's like, "Beloved, I want to let you know I got your grandpa with this one sheet dress. That's all I wore." She said, "I didn't wear no makeup, no earrings." So she was like, just think of that concept. You feel me? And she's like, this man was willing to take care of her. So I say that all to say, when it comes to respecting a man within a relationship, what does that look like? Because I feel like sometimes there's this rift between, okay, I'm empowered in my body, but now I'm in a relationship with a man who wants a woman that's covered up, because that's in his mind, that's my girl. I don't want other people looking at my woman like that, because I feel men have an internal sense of modesty for women, and sometimes women will get offended by the men who say that. But of course, at the same time, it is a dichotomy. Those same men are looking at them, going on OnlyFans, paying all this money, but at the same time, they won't wife up a girl who's per se in a league or an industry that is maybe sexualized, whether it's stripper OnlyFans or just being out here as a model.
Yes. And I was reading one of the comments that someone just said that having a preference for both, we have to be hot or cold on the object. And yes, you have to have a stance. You have to pick a stance. You definitely do. Um, but I'm just saying, like, personally, my stance is I prefer to be covered up, but that's not everyone's position, and we can't automatically assume that everyone lives their lives to the laws of the Bible. And at the same time, we are not here to tell you, hey, you need to be more modest. You need to put some clothes on. But we want to definitely expose the reality that some people feel more comfortable and they're more so on the feminist side of reclaiming their sexuality, and they do it through the lens of dressing how they want and telling the world to kind of fall in line. But um, to your question that the commenter left, I'm taking this from the stance of First Corinthians chapter 5, 12 and 13. And essentially, I will never cast the first stone. A lot of times, whenever we do something that we feel is morally wrong, the person already knows that they're doing something that is morally or immorally wrong. It is not my position to be like, hey, you're doing something that is wrong and live, you're gonna rue the day. If a person is doing something wrong 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, they know already that what they're doing is in the wrong. Who am I to then step in and be like, stop being wrong? You know, instead, I rather create a space where we're able to talk it out and we're able to grow and learn together. Um, and that's what I have been put on this earth to do. Not cast stones, not throw people or condemn them. So I understand that you believe that I cannot be hot or cold on one subject or the other. I'm here to say that this is my preference. It's the traditionalist, but I have to understand that other people don't feel that same way.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point. Even after that scripture, it states, being able to don't cast the first stone, but also to judge righteously. So, for example, within people in the body of Christ, they do know better. So we're in a position to tell those people, hey, if I don't have a log in my eye and I'm not struggling with the same thing, and I've been through a struggle, whether that's dressing immodestly, I can go to a sister in love and be like, hey, I was in this position. Hey, this is possibly a better route. I'm here if you need me, if you want. But as you stated, Leslie, like when it comes to the world, our position isn't to judge them. How can you judge someone? They don't even know that they're doing anything wrong. You feel me? But if we can state how we believe, I totally agree with you, Cal DH. And you do have to be set firm. But there is a certain level of grace that you have to have when it comes to approaching different issues like that.
And also, we can't automatically assume that everybody shares the same faith as we do. We decided to become followers of Christ, and um, we we understand the laws of God. People who are in the world don't understand the laws that we live by. They don't know the Ten Commandments. Uh, they don't know God's laws. So who are we then to be like, hey, not only do you not know God's laws, but you're also in the wrong. So before we can even give you that chance to get to know God and accept him as your personal Lord and Savior, what we're going to do is we're going to judge you. So what does that say about us as Christians? Like, yes, we are the ones who's supposed to tell them that they are, and we're supposed to be the ones who help correct, but correcting can be done in a way that is respectful, and we need to also understand our place, because we are not the judge, we are not the end all be all. God is the end all be all. So I'll stay firm in that, saying that I am not in the position to judge anyone, but I am in the position to bring them in, and we can have a discussion and we can learn and we can grow together, because you can't teach someone who isn't even in the class. Like they don't even know what you're talking about. So you gotta take baby steps. You gotta take one day at a time.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe.